As with the start of any stream, trying to see how it actually works. Okay. All right. It's about damn time. Um. Now time to start selling myself. Gotta advertise. Gotta do what I gotta do, you know what I'm saying? Um okay. Oh, goodness gracious sakes alive. Okay. I think we're Gucci, right? Oh, goodness gracious sakes alive. Alrighty. Got that up and working. Now time to just advertise myself and get people to ask those burning questions, because I'm here to discuss it with all y'all. You know, whatever questions you got about whatever you need, I'm here for you. Think of this as a DM hotline. Just got. Okay. Ugh. Alrighty. For those of you just hopping in, for those of you lurking, for those of you just chiming in for a little bit, hello, everyone, one and all. I am No Fun Allowed, and contrary to my name, I sometimes allow fun. I'm here to discuss things tabletop role-playing games with y'all, here to ask your burning GM and DM player questions and tabletop role-playing game questions. I'm here to help out. I am here to facilitate a good time for any and all of y'all, so feel free to hop in on the good times. I'm a servant of the public. I'm a public servant here. I'm trying to help out with anybody. Okay, NFA, top 5 tabletop role-playing Kickstarters, go. Well, that's a tough one because is that current, like tabletop role playing game Kickstarters right this second, or is that of all time? Because those are entirely different answers. Because obviously, some of the top tabletop role playing game Kickstarters have already been completed. All time. Um. Okay, so man, that's a tough one. Okay, let me take a look at Kickstarter here, and I don't want to frickin' do it on stream in case I give away any information on anything. But Kickstarters, man, there's been some really good Kickstarters because not only has there been good Kickstarters, but there's also been just outstandingly performing Kickstarters, right? Like there's been Kickstarters that have revolutionized the tabletop role-playing game sphere. One I would say would be Mothership. Mothership has got an incredible Kickstarter. They were just a small little zine, only a few pages and whatnot, and it's a classic sci-fi horror RPG. And their 0th edition was being passed around at cons and like websites and whatnot. And then they decided to do their first edition. And their first edition, I'm checking the numbers right now, they had 15,699 backers, pledged $1.4 million. That is incredible. And mind you, I think the team that created that tabletop role-playing game was incredibly small. So that's life-changing. Those people are doing good for themselves, right? So Mothership, freaking fan-freaking-tastic. Oh, man. I personally haven't done too many Kickstarters because, one, I'm poor, and two, I just, I typically just want to wait for the product to be out versus, hedging my bets, as it were, and, spending a bunch of money and then not seeing it for a long time. But, props to the Dungeon Dudes. The Dungeon Dudes had, Mothership, as we all know, is a spiritual successor to Father Boat. Father Boat. Let me take a look at the Dungeon Dudes one because there's Dungeons of Drakkenheim. Oh my gosh, that thing killed it. Dungeons of or Drakkenheim. Is it Dungeons of Drakkenheim or something of Drakkenheim? Oh, is it Dungeons of Drakkenheim? Drakkenheim Kickstarter. What was the Dungeon Dudes thing? Dungeons of Drakkenheim. Yeah, so the Dungeon Dudes, their Kickstarter of Dungeons of Drakkenheim, freaking ridiculous. They just knocked it out of the park. Mind you, it's literally just they made Mordheim City of the Damned, but just made it for 5e. But, obviously people didn't really recognize. So they had 13,000 backers, pledging 1.2 million. That's ridiculous. Middle school teacher trying to use D&D for social skills and educational purposes. Help, my students are special education with emotional behavior disorders. I have Candlekeep. I assume that you're typing more as we speak, as I'm reading this. I assume so. Yeah, so what I'll say is D&D, I'm going to say the analogous to D&D, tabletop role-playing games in general, is fan-friggin-tastic for developing social skills and educational skills at schools. And me and a bunch of other YouTubers are trying to advocate starting D&D clubs at our respective nearby local schools. So D&D is fan-friggin-tastic for that. And obviously your case is a little bit special because you're working in the special education department. I haven't read the rest of what you're going to type because I assume that you have more to type. But in regards of working with kids that have emotional and behavioral disorders, you just got to work with it, right? If you have people that shout out, every once in a while, then you're going to have to, you're going to have to work with it. If you have people that get either too invested or not invested at all, you're going to have to deal with it, right? The thing to consider is you just have to present, specifically, I would say, like for middle school in particular, I would present simpler games, simpler scenarios, and, you know, trying to homebrew a campaign. Okay. Yeah, what I'll say is I wouldn't lean in too heavily with doing overarching mega, massive, super splendiferous campaigns that are overarching plots and grandiose designs and empires versus empires and political intrigue. Instead, I would just have it where every single session is simple, straightforward, to the point, and then it leads into the next session. And then you do another session where it's simple, straightforward, and to the point, and then it moves to the next session. Because, one, they're middle schoolers. You can't be expecting them to be, reciting Shakespeare and all that. So don't expect them to, right? Just work with simple premises that are laid right out there in front of them. Give them one or two or three options. Let them take the hooks, and when you present the hooks, they're gonna claw at them, and then you work with that hook, and then you present the next hook, and then you present the next hook. Candlekeep has some good adventures for that. Candlekeep can be just as simple as, oh, hey, you're working at Candlekeep, and then, oh, you get dragged into this little adventure. Here you go. It can be as simple as that. You don't need to work. You don't need to complicate things, right? Just make it simple, straightforward, to the point. Get them excited for whatever it is that they like most about D&D. Your kids, maybe maybe they just like beating up monsters, and hey, you present a game where they work forward to the goal of beating up the monster. Maybe they like games where they get to talk to the person with the funny voice. And then they work forward to talking to the character with the funny voice. Just figuring out what they want most out of the game and delivering that is the best way to go about it. Hands down. Hands down. The Essentials Kit is great for kids too. Yeah, so I'd say pretty much like all of the starting adventures, whether that be the starter set, the Essentials Kit, and the oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name. The Wreck-It Stormwreck, or the Stormwreck Isle. I'm forgetting which one that is. Those are very just simple adventures. You just plop them in an area, and you point in a direction, say, hey, there's a thing, do thing. Just get them to do thing. Best place for digital dice D&D Beyond? I'd assume so. I know that there's some digital dice to be found on things such as Tabletop Simulator, on Foundry, on what do you call that thing? Oh my gosh, what's the name of there's Tailspire, there's what's the Steam one? And Steam's not Foundry. There's one on Steam too. I'm trying to blank on the name. But yeah, I'd assume D&D Beyond is probably the most simple. Owlbear Rodeo. I haven't looked to see if Owlbear Rodeo has more than just standard dice that you roll. I'm not entirely sure. In fact, I don't know if. Oh man, I love Owlbear. Yeah, Owlbear Rodeo is with that. Like I saw recently on what's his face on the Lazy Dungeon Master. He recently showed off a poll of what people are using for the virtual tabletops. And obviously Roll20 just knocks it out of the park compared to everything else, because Roll20 has just been in the game the longest. It has the most advertisement. It was one of the first ones that worked alongside D&D. But Owlbear Rodeo was actually working its way up there. I know you'll appreciate this. One of my TOA groups have continued on after stopping the death curse and are now on a quest to restore the princess to the throne. That's awesome. That's awesome. Any continuation you can do of that amazing campaign is well worth it. TOA is, once again, one of my most favorite of the 5e modules. And in fact, I'm actually working on something for that right now. So I'm looking forward to that. For those of you that have watched me for some time, you'll know that the majority of my channel involves 5e adventure module guides. And then I've taken some dips here and there and everywhere. I've done some just generic DM advice. I've done some DM roundtables with people. I've done interviews with people. And right now I am going to be hauling overtime pretty soon here because I'm going to be doing DM adventure module guides on... oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking on the top of my head here. On Tales from the Iron Portal, Baldur's Gate Descent to Avernus, and Out of the Abyss. So I'm going to be releasing those. And then in between all of those, I'll be releasing some other stuff too. I've slowed down a lot, unfortunately, just from the past like 2 or 3 months. I've been a lot busy with a lot of like life stuff, but I am going to be kicking it overtime relatively soon here, so I'm really looking forward to that. Oh. Ooh-wee. I need to turn my fan up. I'm freaking roasting here. Ooh-wee. Hopefully it doesn't come up on the mic. Hopefully. About to find out. Ooh-wee. Hopefully it doesn't come up on the mic. Hopefully. Doesn't sound like it. Okay. I can have the fan going. You play Mutant Crawl Classics. Have you watched Thundar the Barbarian? I feel like I've seen Thundar the Barbarian. Let me double check, though. Thundar the Barbarian. Sound like it. Okay. Oh, God. I can have the fan. You play Mutant Crawl Classics? No, I have not watched Thundar the Barbarian, unfortunately. I do want to watch some of those classics, though. Like, a lot of those, like, classic cartoons definitely have a lot of inspiration to be had with them. After playing the 0th level games with you and watching your videos on DCC, got you super hyped on it. Any must-buy adventures and supplements besides the Backbreaker book? Must-buy adventures, there's quite a few that are just fan-friggin-tastic. The thing to consider about when you go to buy a DCC adventure module is they're anywhere between 10 to 20 pages. They're nothing major. They're nothing big. But they get the job done. And, look, like, I've got a huge collection of them. Every single one of them can be ran anywhere between 1 to 4 sessions. Every single one. And the great part is they all can fit really well as just a one-shot, or they fit well into a campaign. Must-buys, though. Let me take a look at the whole list here of DCC adventure modules, and I will tell you some just absolute fan-friggin-tastic standout ones. For 0th level adventures, I love They Served Brandolin Red. I think that's a fantastic campaign start. I think it's a fantastic 0th level adventure. Just absolutely great all around. For level 1 adventures, let's take a look here. I like Frozen in Time. Frozen in Time is a great, cute little level 1 adventure. Looking around. The one who watches from below is just, it's creepy, it's fun, it's weird, it's wacky. It's just everything that is DCC. For second level is when you really bump into some of the fun adventures in the Dungeon Crawl Classics lineup. we have here some great holiday adventures. A great Valentine's Day adventure, which, normally you don't associate Valentine's Day with, playing tabletop role-playing games, but I'm here to tell you, you should associate all holidays with, some type of adventure. Valentine's Day is great. There is Love in the Age of Gong Farmers, just fan-friggin-tastic, a Valentine's Day adventure. The Doom That Came to Christmas Town, fan-friggin-tastic Christmas adventure, because you get to play as a bunch of characters from, Christmas adventures. One of the characters is one of Santa's reindeers, one of the characters is Mrs. Claus, just a whole bunch of great stuff going on with that. Looking around at other adventures, I've got my lineup here. Moon Slaves, The Cannibal Kingdom. Oh man, that's a dope one. That just harkens back to just classic Conanian feel of, going to a weird place and having to deal with all the denizens therein. There's some good things. So there's several must-buy adventures for DCC, I would say. And in regards of the supplements, one of the major ones I would say is the DCC Annual. The DCC Annual comes with a whole bunch of other great source material. It comes with new patrons. It comes with a whole bunch of new spells. It comes up with a whole bunch of new magical items, a whole bunch of new monsters. It comes up... You know what's really great about the DCC Annual? It comes with rules for mustache powers. Because in DCC, you of course have mustache powers. Of course. So, several fine adventures in the DCC lineup, and then, of course, the DCC Annual. Great stuff. Yay, finally catching a live stream. Hey, Devin. Loved the TOA guide. Really helped me run a memorable campaign for my group of 8. Epic, epic, epic. That does sound epic to have 8 people in that game. That's awesome. TOA is just my baby. I love it so much. I think TOA it captures everything I want in a adventure module of 300 pages. It does what I want it to do. Thanks for the advice, guys. Also, 10th level party may earn a wish in a few weeks. Any good with ideas? So, Dana, what I would say is, the more time you allow your players to think about the wish, the more intense it's going to get, right? Because if you say, hey, here's a wish, and then they can have a few weeks of out-of-game time to discuss it, then they're going to think of the best possible thing. My personal thing with wishes is, if I ever give them to anybody, ever, I always like to... make it so that they don't have any time to think about it. I always like when, instead of being okay, here's this ring of wishes and you get to hold on to this, or, oh, hey, here's a genie and the genie says, hey, they have as much time as you want. Instead, what I like to do with wishes is say, hey, the genie says, I'll grant you 1 wish in the next 10 seconds, go. And literally, you just start counting down in real time. 9, 8, 7, 6. Because then you're going to get the fun, wacky answers. Someone's going to blurt out something stupid, and you get to roll with it. Instead of them thinking about the perfect answer, you're going to get the most fun answer. Because perfect does not always mean the best. Right? So my solution is give them next to no time to fulfill their wish statement. And I've done this a lot of times, and I've actually done it several times to the same players, and every single time they always get blindsided, especially if they don't know that the reward is going to be a wish. Now, if your players know for a fact that they're doing something to earn a wish, I'm actually a player in the party getting a wish. Oh, never mind then. Never mind. Okay, this is an entirely different thing. Okay, so as a player, and you know for a fact that you're getting a wish, that's entirely different. So the thing about wishes is in 5e, wishes do not have the statement of you can get anything you want. In fact, there is actually some very guideline rigid stipulations on what you can and cannot get with a wish. Now, of course, every single DM is going to either, respect the rules or they're going to break the rules, right? So one of the simple wishes to make you more powerful would be, I wish to be resistant to all damage, or I wish to increase my stats, or I wish to get this awesome magical item. Like that, those are the simple ones. But in regards of the fun, interesting, and intriguing ones for campaigns, then you would lean into, I wish we had, the answers to this problem that's present in the campaign world. I wish that we could become, kings in a kingdom. I wish we could become, I wish, X, Y, and Z, right? It really comes down to the campaign that you're kind of running there. But I would personally try to lean in on the more world building and intriguing wishes versus the self-fulfilling wishes. Wish for something that's not going to that's going to forward the story, something that makes things more interesting, open doors instead of closing them. For example, I wish we knew where to find a weakness of the big bad evil guy. Yeah, that's a great one right there, right? Because I personally, if someone wished for, I wish the villain to disappear, then they're going to disappear for 5 minutes and then come back, right? I'll never let you just kill the bad guy with a wish. That's incredibly boring. But saying, hey, I wish we could, I wish for a way to capture the villain forever and all time, then all of a sudden your wish is going to send you on a quest to find a dimensional force cage, and then you can use that dimensional force cage after completing that quest to then capture the villain. That's a lot more intriguing. I wish X enemy becomes our friend. That's a great one right there. All of a sudden the evil lich that's controlling the undead horde that's pouring over the kingdom all of a sudden becomes a good guy, or maybe just becomes friends of the party. Then how do you navigate that social circumstance, right? There's some intriguing ways to go about that. Oh, goodness gracious. Sakes alive. What was I looking at? Yes, I'm looking at this. So yeah, I mean, wishes, wishes that just, make the game, expand upon the game that you've got going on is one of the best ways to go, is what I would say. Wishes that lead to fun gameplay. Which is why I personally, as a DM, would only ever be you've got 10 seconds, go, you've got 5 seconds, go, because then there's no way you're going to be able to wish for something, you're not going to be able to think of the thing that is the best thing, right? You're just going to wish for something stupid. One time I did it, and someone said, I wish everyone had a hat. Someone just blurted that out, and I was like, okay, boom, and everybody got a hat. Dumb things like that. Oh. Favorite TOA story. So my favorite TOA story, which is no spoiler, mind you, is, oh, cool, sex bots. Hide, boom, there we go. So my favorite TOA story, which is not a spoiler for TOA, is the party right. So how I run TOA is you start off in the port, and then you go out into the jungle, and you inevitably have to return because you have to restock on supplies, and you gotta cash in on all the gems that you got, and you gotta do X, and you gotta do Y, you gotta do Z. So every single game that I run of TOA, you have to go out into the jungles, get a bunch of money, go back to port, repeat process multiple times. And so one thing one thing that happened in my game was when they came back for the second time, they became like celebrities because they were rich and powerful and awesome and making friends with people. And so eventually a person goes up to them and says, "Hey, you guys are awesome. I am an up-and-coming adventurer. Can I be your guys' henchman? Can I be your retainer? I want to learn from you guys." And the great part about that is because I've done that with every single group looks at this retainer differently. The first group I did this with, they looked at this retainer and said, "Hey kid, we don't have a healer in the party. How about you become our group's healer?" And then they train him up to be the healer. The second group I did this with, they were all selfish. The druid said, "Oh, I want you to be a druid." The paladin said, "I want you to be a paladin." The monk said, "I want you to be a monk." The fighter said, "I want you to be a fighter." And they were literally just, fighting each other over what this retainer is going to become. Then the third time I ran this, the group said, "Oh man, how about?" And none of them wanted to be the one that taught this retainer. So they had one of their friends, who was an NPC, teach this guy how to be a fighter. So it's always interesting to see the development of this retainer that latches onto the party because of the way that he grows up. Because, in one game he develops one way, and in another game he develops another. He's got the same-ish personality, but depending on the things the players do and the type of role that he becomes, his personality might change over time, but he's still the same guy. And it's really great to see an NPC be truly influenced by the party. And the development of these retainers, just really, really fits into what I love about D&D, about how it's about players influencing the game. Let's hear a prediction of how they are going to mess up the martial classes in their UA release for 1D&D. My prediction for how they're going to mess up the martial classes is they're probably going to do what they've done for these previous classes and move things about to different levels. So I'm going to be making a video about this relatively soon here. But what we just saw with the previous, UA was that they stretched up the levels. There were features that the Bard and the Rogue and the Ranger got at 5th level, but now they got moved to 7th level. And I know exactly why that is. That is because the developers, Wizards of the Coast, they want to guarantee that people play from levels 1 to 20. The reason why they stretch out some of the features from 5th level to 7th level is because they're encouraging high-level play. Now, ultimately, it doesn't matter what Wizards of the Coast does, because at a certain level, I didn't say level, at a certain point, there are going to be a lot of people who just simply will not play high-level D&D. And I've made this statement before, and every single time, everyone always immediately jumps on the argument of, oh, people don't play high-level D&D because Wizards of the Coast doesn't support high-level D&D. And what I'm here to tell you is that is only one of the many reasons why people don't play high-level D&D. It is actually truly a combination of a bunch of things. Like I said, I'm going to be making a video about this. But ultimately, it doesn't matter what Wizards of the Coast does. It doesn't matter if they move features about to try and, encourage people to play from levels 1 to 20. People are not going to be doing it. There's a bunch of people who skip levels 1 and 2. There are the majority of people do not play tiers 3 and 4. Most people play in between the gaps of levels 3 to 10. That is the average game by an incredibly large margin. A bunch of people do play levels 1 and 2, yes. But then if you just see like the drop off of people that are playing in tier 3, levels 11 through 16, and then levels 17 through 20, next to nobody's playing 17 through 20. And, obviously a bit more people are playing levels 16 and to 11. It's just, there's so many reasons, and like I said, I'm going to be making a video about this. There is a bunch of reasons I'm going to be going over each and every one, but Wizards of the Coast not supporting high-level play, it doesn't matter even if they did heavily support it, it's still not going to see play. Have I ever played over 15th level? Yes, I have. Correction. I have not played it personally. I run games over level 15. In fact, one of my current games is the group is level 18. So yes, I do run games for tiers 3 and 4. Me personally, I don't like it nearly as much as tiers 1 and 2 though. There is a bunch of reasons, like I said, I'm going to be making the video about this relatively soon here. But there's a bunch of reasons why people just don't playing those, and there's a lot to do. As a DM and as a player, there is a lot to do. How's that going? It's going good. So the real thing to consider with incredibly high tier play, specifically tier 4, where my players are at in particular, is the threats that have to be presented to have an engaging experience have to be off the scales, right? In the last session that they did, they fought a demon lord and a horde of demons, and then they had to interact with Tiamat, and then they had to make a deal with Asmodeus, and did this and that, and you have to just throw out incredibly high curveballs. You have to work so much more. You've got to put in so much effort and detail into things, and it just requires a lot of work. Like I said, both on the DM's part and on the player's part, because on the player's part, your character sheet gets massive, right? The amount of features that you have on your character sheet is intense. The amount of magical items you've stored up, and also very, very importantly, if you are a spellcaster, then your spell list is a tome. Especially if you are specifically a druid or a cleric, you have literally all these spells that you could ever prepare. That's just such a pain. Have you ever homebrewed a campaign setting? If so, how do you go about building the map world? Where is your starting point? Okay, this is an incredibly important one, Devin. Incredibly important. So I see people all the time, always, whenever they go to talk about their homebrew world, or to say, oh yeah, I'm homebrewing a world. A lot of people like to work from the outside in. And what do I mean by that? Working from the outside in means that, okay, so I'm creating a pantheon, and this pantheon of gods creates this world, and this world, 10,000 years ago, there was a great tidal wave, and then there was this, demonic siege, and basically you're working from the outside in, but you have to remember, when your players hop into this game, they are working from the inside out. It doesn't matter what your pantheon is like. It doesn't matter what happened 10,000 years ago. It doesn't matter about a bunch of these things. If your players don't have a tavern to go visit, it doesn't matter if there is this great epic history of, this demonic siege, if your players don't have a dungeon to delve into. So don't work from the outside in, work from the inside out. Now, you can have those things, right? You can definitely have, like, okay, there was a pantheon, built the world, there was a demonic siege, this and that. But you really need to work from the player's perspective. So just start from there, right? So so start with the whole thing of, okay, what's an engaging, fun world to play in? Okay, how about one where you start off in this town that's on the edge of a desert, and you go into the desert because in this desert there is a whole bunch of ancient artifacts from a bygone era. So that's the campaign world right there. Like, you don't need to know what's, it's 3 continents away. You don't need to know what's under the ocean. You don't need to know about the Pantheon immediately. You only need to know about the immediate area and what the game is going to be about. So, first things first, work from the player's perspective, work your way out. And then you start working. So, going off of this example that we're going on right here, where is the starting point? The starting point is this town on the edge of the frontier. This town that is got your amenities to have a fun, engaging time for your players. It's got the tavern to go visit and drink at. It's got the people that frequent it that your players are going to interact with. This town has, the item shop to buy all of the gear that you need to be an adventurer. This town has the guards, that protect the town, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you slowly start making your way out. Very wise words, my friend. Definitely a time saver. I'm starting to prep a world for my group and getting lost on how to start and how to provide content for them to play. Yeah. So like I said, right, it's cool, right? You think to yourself, like, man, that's awesome. I'm going to have this dope pantheon of 8-dimensional beings that oversee this world and this demonic invasion. Oh, that's so cool. But it's not player-facing information, right? Start off with that, fringe town. Start off with that adventure site. Start off with the local villain, if there is any, right? Start off with the local things and then work your way out. You don't need to know what's 3 continents away. You don't need to know what's deep under the ocean. What you need to know is what your players are going to get their hands on in it within a few sessions. We might want to sit here and have this beautiful map drawn up of this world, but ultimately your players aren't going to see this map of this world because they probably shouldn't see a map of the world, right? They should only see a map of the local area, if that. So, and Devin in particular, what I would say is the real question with your homebrew world is, are you making this world for yourself or are you making this for your players? That's also a very important one. Because there will be times where when you homebrew a world, you imagine that you're going to be using this world multiple times. Maybe you're going to write your adventures for this homebrew world. Maybe you're going to, have all of the one-shots be in this homebrew world. You're going to have all of the quest hooks and beats be centered around this world. Or you could go around the idea of, oh, hey, I'm just making this world for my group to play this one campaign in, and that's the end of story. You're going to approach the world building differently. Like I said before, if you are building a homebrew world just purely for your friends, then what, you screw building outside of the kingdom to start with. Just build the town and the surrounding area, and then build up the kingdom, and if you need to, build up further. But if you are doing it for yourself, then take your time with it. Build what you want to build, and do what you need to do. And yeah, also I totally missed this, but have I ever homebrewed campaign setting? Yes, absolutely. I've homebrewed several campaign settings. And in fact, I'm writing some of them right now, and I plan on publishing them at some point. So I'm looking forward to that. Oh, goodness gracious sakes alive. So I'll write that down. Start from the inside, then work your way out. Start small. Then things if you ever play Call of Cthulhu? How do you feel about that play system in comparison to 5e? Yes, I have played some Call of Cthulhu. And what I'm here to tell you is they are completely separate systems, and that's a good thing. 5e, no matter what some developers may say, specifically from Wizards of the Coast, 5e is a combat game through and through. The majority of the rules pertain to combat. The majority of the features that players receive pertain to combat. The majority of spells in the game pertain to combat. The majority of everything in 5e pertains to combat. Call of Cthulhu is a very interesting one because there are a bunch of rules about combat. But where 5e embraces combat, Call of Cthulhu shuns combat. In Call of Cthulhu, you don't want to be in combat. Call of Cthulhu combat is very scary. And that makes it feel that much more real, right? When I play 5e, you look at like what the commoner can do compared to the adventurer. The commoner can't do anything, right? The commoner gets killed by a goblin on average when they get attacked. But the adventurer, all of a sudden, they're getting struck by lightning bolts dead on, and just walking it off. The adventurer, once they reach a certain level, can fall 200 feet and literally walk it off. In Call of Cthulhu, you get scraped, in combat, you're screwed for a long time. In Call of Cthulhu, when you see something scary, you don't feel scared for just a little bit. Like in 5e, you've got the fear condition. In Call of Cthulhu, you see something scary, and your character is reeling from that realization. One of my best things about Call of Cthulhu, or one of my favorite things about Call of Cthulhu, is starting up a campaign where the investigators know nothing about the mythos, and then over time they learn more and more about it. And as they learn more and more about the mythos of the world, they start to go more and more insane. Because in the beginning, you don't know anything, and thus you're not really too scared of it. Or you're not scared of what you don't know. But then eventually, once reality starts to seep in that there are these alien beings and these eldritch horrors, then you're more and more prone to, going insane. And I think that plays well into, if you're a great role player, that plays in really well with your character, because you look at the situation and you're like, man, we have to do something about these eldritch horrors, but I'm scared. This isn't good. I really like Call of Cthulhu. The biggest thing I will say about the difference between Call of Cthulhu and 5e, though, is I feel like I could grab the average everyday person off of the streets and play a game of 5e, and they'd be like okay-ish with it. However, I feel like the average person probably wouldn't be as down for Call of Cthulhu, because Call of Cthulhu is a bit more of a methodical game and a lot more RP heavy. 5e, you can play a beer and pretzels game where you don't care that you take damage and you don't care that you see the scary thing. But in Call of Cthulhu, if you play that way, where you just shrug off like, oh yeah, we just saw a scary interdimensional creature, whatever. Oh yeah, my character just got shot and whatever. It doesn't feel as good. So you need to have the right players for Call of Cthulhu to make it feel really good. Are there supplements for Call of Cthulhu, or is the majority of it DM creates content? No, there's a bunch of great supplements for Call of Cthulhu. First off, there's a bunch of great adventures for Call of Cthulhu. A bunch. Just like straight up from the developers themselves and from the community. There's a bunch of people that create Call of Cthulhu adventures that are phenomenal. Secondly, in regards of major supplements for Call of Cthulhu, there are several major ones. Specifically in regards of one of the major ones, I would say, is Pulp Cthulhu. So where Cthulhu, or Call of Cthulhu, is combat is scary, don't do it, oh my god, don't do it. There is Pulp Cthulhu, and in Pulp Cthulhu, it's still the same in regards of like things can be scary and you might go insane and whatnot, but combat is a lot more lively because you don't die nearly as quickly. In Call of Cthulhu, if someone shoots you, there's a very good chance you're dead. In Pulp Cthulhu, you have resources in the game that you can use to stave off dying and stave off getting shot. So it's sort of like a meta currency in that, like, if someone shoots you and you take damage, you can be like, actually, I use that point and I don't take damage, kind of thing. So that can fit well for the people that want a bit more of the guns blazing style of Call of Cthulhu. And also very, very cool supplements for Call of Cthulhu is the standard Call of Cthulhu rules are for the 1920s, and they can fit all across the globe. There is, however, a bunch of supplements that take place in different time periods. There is Gaslight by Cthulhu, which is, 1600s. Specifically, it could be like, the U.S. and England and things like that. There is Invictus Cthulhu, which is all about Roman times, so like 2,000 years ago. There is Modern Cthulhu. Modern Cthulhu. Like, great stuff there, right? So there is a lot of fan-freaking-tastic supplements for Call of Cthulhu, and it can fit the style of game that you prefer. Like, standard Call of Cthulhu is a certain type of gameplay experience, but thankfully, through the supplements, you can tune in to kind of what you want. Do you want a modern game? Do you want an old era game? Do you want combat to be scary? Do you want combat to be like cool and pulpy? You can fit in, with the supplements, you can really mix and match what you want out of the game. Invictus sounds awesome. Yeah, so Invictus in particular, right? Like, there's a ton of great things you can do with a Call of Cthulhu game set 2,000 years ago, right? You can have it where, you're, as part of the legions, you're marching out and all of a sudden you stumble across, these weird, pagan cultist Germanic tribe that's out in the woods. And then when you return back to Rome, oh, hey, there's actually some, there's some vile cultists that are a part of the Senate. There's a lot of great things you can do with that, right? All the meanwhile, you don't have a gun. If you, depending on who you are, you have, a sword or a spear. Maybe you have a ballista. Or, you wouldn't even be carrying the ballista around, right? But you know what I mean. Like, the technology really, really does infer the type of style of play that you're going to be doing. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Call of Cthulhu, I highly recommend if you're looking for a different experience. As much as a lot of people want 5e to be everything, 5e cannot be everything. No one game system can be everything. That's just the nature of it. No one game system will do everything the best. And they shouldn't. If I want a style of play, I should play a certain game. Howdy! Speaking of scarier games, have you ever used mechanics like the Madness Table, which I've seen in Curse of Strahd, where you add or modify characters' personality trait? I've used some, but I've used some things, but ultimately, Conrad, what it comes down to is, in 5e, what I've typically found is most players want autonomy of their character, right? Yeah, so you just mentioned it. I want to use a mechanic like that, but I feel like it can take away from player urgency with that player wants to do with their character, right? So I personally love playing games where I have full autonomy and then the autonomy gets taken away. I'm okay with that, right? Like we were just talking about Call of Cthulhu. In Call of Cthulhu, you have autonomy of your character, but then if you go insane and your character now has a flaw of they start to see, people, dead people, or they have a nervous twitch or X, Y, and Z. I'm okay with that. I really like that. And so I'm okay with the madness table as well. But I know that there's a lot of players that are not cool with that. There's a lot of players that say, no, I want to be in charge of my character at all times.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, Boba. You're live on the air with me. No fun allowed.
I'm live on what now?
You're live on Sending Stone.
Cool.
What's your hard-hitting, burning question?
No one else was online. I saw you, thought I'd come and say hello.
Fair enough.
I didn't realize you were doing something.
Fair enough.
When's Blood Bowl 3's release date? There you go, that's the question.
Blood Bowl 3's release date, that's a good question. I have not been keeping up with that. They say... What do they say? It's saying 2022. There's no way it already came out, right?
No. I assume we'd know.
Yeah, I'm looking right now, and it's planned release date 2022. And I hate to break it to people, but they're running out of 22 time. Interesting.
Maybe they're going to release it as a Christmas present.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a Christmas present in that it'll come out with 4 races, and then you have to pay for all the 20 other races later on.
I think it's having 10 at release, right? 10
Is it
12?
really? That's actually that's generous considering. Do you remember the meta of Blood Bowl 2 when there was only the 6 starting teams?
Wood elves were good. Wood elves were good.
Oh yes.
That's about it, really.
And then I think dwarves were like really bad too, right?
Yeah, they weren't great because like half the teams were
Agi teams.
and orcs and Saurus? Were lizardmen in it at the start?
Yeah, it was Wood Elves and Lizardmen were the DLCs.
They were the pre-order DLC. Yeah,
that's what it was. Oh man, Blood Bowl! What a time Blood Bowl was, huh? What a time. Yeah, I just don't know how many people are actually going to appreciate the Blood Bowl 2020 rules over 7th edition.
Well, I'm looking forward to the new teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think they so there's the Black Orcs, there's the human noble, and
Ogres are different, halflings are different, right?
Oh yes.
Underworld.
And,
Underworld got Gut Runner now.
Well, yeah. Well, they nerfed Gutter Runners pretty substantially.
Yeah, but they buffed Skaven Throwers, so.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of had to, right? Oh.
But Gut Runner on the Underworld, and they get Snotlings.
Do they really? That's funny.
They get Snotlings with a special rule that they can actually bring on more than 11 players.
That I actually like.
So the Snotlings have a special rule that allows them to bring on more players. It's D3 more players, but you can't have more extra players than Snotlings you already have on the pitch. So if you've only got one Snotling on the pitch, and it's every half it rolls.
Every half or drive?
Every drive
Okay.
it rolls.
Yeah, I like that.
So if you want to get the chance of getting the 3, you have to actually field 3 Snotlings to start with. So yeah, but the bonus 3. If you've only got 1 on the field anyway, you can only get a maximum of 1 extra. Because apparently they nerfed it because it was too strong. Because people would just have 3 Snotlings on the bench and then have extra players. Yeah.
I think that's perfectly fair because I mean Underworld has always been the joke. Like Underworld's always been the joke team that's like just almost competitive, you know. So I'm okay with that.
Halflings have positionals now, right?
Yes, they have brutes, which I think start with block. Either they start with block or they start with the new block skill. What's the one? What's that new block skill?
I know what you mean. The one that the Blackhawks have.
Yeah. Can't remember. And then a bunch of new teams are also getting, or a bunch of teams are getting new. Oh yeah. Every team's got a friggin' wizard now, special wizard.
Every team has a what?
Every team has a special wizard. It's no longer. So it's no longer fireball, lightning bolt. It's team dependent. So some teams basically their wizards like some of them do operate like fireballs or lightning bolts. I'd have to pull it all up, but
I guess that's a nerf to the teams that get fireballs, right? Because lightning bolts are better.
Yes, but I mean, to be fair, like it always felt so bad if you're just like shy and like someone scums out a wizard against you. It felt so bad.
So every game you have a wizard.
No. Just if you get it, like then you have your team's special one, I believe.
So you still have to. Is it still an inducement wizard?
Yes.
Right.
And then there's also a very interesting star player for some teams, which is a giant, which takes up
I've seen that.
It takes up a 2x2 or a 3x3 on the field. I want to say it's a 2x2.
Yeah, but its tackle zones don't apply to behind it, so it's the 2 in front and then so it's 4 across and 3 down the tackle zones, and then the 4 at the back. It doesn't have tackle zones.
Which is like, I mean, they're obviously gonna have to figure out how to do facing on the internet version because obviously in person you can face it whichever way you want, right? But yeah, it's very interesting. Obviously, I think one of the biggest changes that's going to be the real upset is the whole MVP system. Like, just allows the Bash teams to just really, really get their players going.
Yeah, I think that's. Yeah.
It's better than, like, I mean, how many games have you had where it goes to the loner or it goes to the dead guy, right? You know?
Yeah, I mean, maybe they should just make it so it won't go to loners and dead people. That might have been a better option.
That'd be, fair too, but the problem with
surviving members of the team at the end.
The problem with fair is that, the developers of Blood Bowl have never made the game fair, ever, so...
Well, anyway, that was my question.
Alrighty.
What are you actually streaming?
I'm just streaming on YouTube and just answering questions from the chat here.
Oh, okay. Have you got humans watching?
I do have humans watching. Or they're really convincing bots. One of the two.
Do I know any of them?
No.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll let you go. I'm gonna go play Dota.
Alrighty. See you.
See ya.
Alrighty. So going back to Conrad, so going back to the whole mechanic thing of you wanna make a mechanic that I want to use the mechanic like that, but I feel like it could take away from player agency. The first thing you need to do is just ask your players, hey, are you okay with features in the game that tell your character you are this and you are that? So, going to 5e, for example, here. In 5e, there is nothing in the game that tells you that your character is scared, right? Because, you know, like, all right, you go into the vampire's lair and you hear a commotion go off and you hear a blood-curdling scream in the night. Just from hearing that, your character doesn't automatically run away. It's you, as the player, that decides that you run away. Now, of course, there is the mechanical thing of fear, which is like, oh, roll wisdom saving throw, and if you fail, then you can't willingly move forward to the thing that's causing you fear, right? But that is primarily used as a in-game or in-combat mechanic, right? So just straight up ask your player, say, hey, are you okay with mechanics that change your character, yes or no? And, you know, you're either going to get some yeses or you're going to get some nos. And if you get no's, then unfortunately it's just not going to work out. But if your players are like me and perfectly fine and happy with, you know, those things going on, then go for it. I highly encourage it. Because you input so much time into this character, and like you unfortunately get this sense that you can't. I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. When you are fully in control of your character at all times, and there's no mechanical input from the game at all whatsoever, then you unfortunately are shackled with the responsibility of being the one that then poses that change onto your character. Versus if you have most autonomy of your character, and then things happen to your character and it does change them, then you aren't as shackled, or you aren't as burdened with doing those changes, and they come to you. And if you like role playing those out, then it feels fantastic. How do I feel about Plane Shift release coming out next year? So, yes, so Plane Shift, you know, specifically looking, it's probably going to be mostly all about the city of Sigil. I dig it. I like Sigil. I like the Plane Shift area. I like Sigil because Sigil is the New York of the D&D universe, right? And it's so great because you get to see all different people and all different walks of life and just all sorts of wacky, weird things going on, and it's great. So I dig it. Plane Shift is just like incredibly unique in that you just get to have a really great time, and you know, you get to experience all the weird things, and it's not as weird, but it's still very weird. When did I start playing tabletop role-playing games? I started when did I start? That would have been in 2017. So the funny thing is I didn't get to play tabletop role-playing games when I was a kid. I didn't get to nerd out when I was young. But then when I became an adult and got to know some people, I dived headlong into tabletop role-playing games. And now I do it like full time. I absolutely just play a bunch of different tabletop role-playing games. I DM a bejesus ton. I obviously make a ton of videos on it. I do so much. I've dived headlong into it, and I'm A-okay with that. I hope you get your players that are good enough to invest yourself into the character and are affected how the GM explains the situation. If he does a good job, then that should reflect on the player. Absolutely. And speaking of, hey, Loriander, how's it going? Conrad, yeah, I sometimes struggle with stuff like that because I have a vast range of RP abilities and comfortability with my players. Yeah, it ultimately comes down to how much autonomy they want. I personally like being told every once in a while, oh, hey, your character, now has this debilitating effect. Now your character doesn't know this piece of information. Your character would know this piece of information. This, and that. I'm okay with that. How do you challenge players in 5e that specifically choose a flying race? I like a good challenge, but how do you pick on them, spotlight them, offering a challenge to the obvious advantage? So so I don't know if you saw, but recently I was on Steely Sam's YouTube channel, and we talked about we had a nice little friendly debate on our flying PCs OP, and ultimately, flying PCs are only OP if you allow them to be, with the caveat that if you do have a flying PC, you have to work a little bit harder to make them not as OP. So, a good challenge for flying PCs is if they are constantly using their flying, then just put them in situations where they can't fly, and thus they simply just have to act like everybody else. Things such as if they're in a tight dungeon and the ceiling is 8 feet high, then they can't fly, right? If the hallway is 5 feet wide, 8 foot high, then they can't fly. Not gonna happen, right? And so putting them in situations where they can't fly is just the simple one. But how do you pick on them, spotlight them, offering a challenge to the obvious advantage? So there are times where there could be things that are actually deadlier to the flying person than to a normal person. So a per example of that would be you're in a dungeon and your players have to hop from beam to beam. And because under the beams are lava. Now, normally, everyone would just have to hop from beam to beam. But then the flying person goes, aha, I can fly, and I start to fly. But as they fly, then all of a sudden they realize that because of the lava, there are massive just air vents that are circulating around this place and just pushing them all over. And thus it becomes deadlier to fly than it would be to just perform the usual routine of simply walking. Because if they're flying, then they potentially get pushed down into the lava. So you don't want to fly, right? So you can present scenarios where flying is scarier than doing the normal thing. So other times, offering a challenge, flying is also very scary too. Because if they are flying, then the worst thing that can happen to them is if they are high up and all of a sudden they lose their flying ability, then they're screwed, because then all of a sudden they plummet into the earth, right? So, another way to spotlight challenge or offer them a challenge here, spotlight, pick on them, whatever, is if they are in a scenario where flying would be advantageous to the party, because let's say your players look up and they see that 80 feet up there is a button on the wall, and you can either climb up the wall or you can fly, right? But if you fly, then all of a sudden something comes out and tries shooting you with a paralyzation ray. And if you get paralyzed, then you fall down the full length and take a bunch of damage. And you have to present these scenarios where it could be a risk reward to fly. Like if people climb, then it's going to take longer to press that button. And if they fly, then they can press the button quicker, but then there's the chance that they fall down. Now, why are they pressing that button? Let's construct a little, gimmicky scenario here. Alrighty, your players are in a big room. Big room. 100 foot wall. 100 foot wall, let's say. They can fly, on the top of the wall, there's a button. And when they step into this room, the door closes behind them. Then all of a sudden, lasers start shooting out all over the place. They know that they have to press that button. They know it. So how are they going to do that? Are they going to take their sweet time and climb? Or is someone going to fly? If that person flies, then the laser hits them with a petrification ray. They fall down. That's that's big trouble, right? Like I've said in the beginning of this little tangent here is, unfortunately, flying PCs require you to think just a little bit more about your trap design, about your dungeon design, about your world design. Unfortunately, flying PCs make you think just a little bit more, but I promise you there's going to be a lot of fun, creative circumstances that come from the risk reward of flying. You know, that little scenario there of having to press the button. If you fly and you get petrified, you're screwed. So, you know, do they shine or do they chicken out? Make fun, unique, and wacky challenges that cause them to fight or flight. Another interesting mechanic to think about is the charm condition. I heard the DMs who basically just say, you now consider this NPC a trusted friend and just leave it up to the player. Yeah, so that's I've heard of plenty of DMs who say that they will never charm PCs ever. Because there's a lot of people that don't want to get into the minutia of telling, you know, players what they can and cannot do. That happens all the time. And then, of course, you have some people that aren't as up to the roleplay, and you say, hey, you're charmed by this NPC, you're their friend. And then the PC goes, well, he's actually my enemy, but I'm going to play up the charmed like we're antagonistic friends, so I punch him, haha, you know. Some people do that. It comes down to the individual players you have at the table, for sure. Encourage player that will get reward even if they do something that is bad for the player but realistic when you think about it. Example, choosing to be scared even if nothing that tell you to. Reward good roleplay. Yeah, I'd say that too. You have the option to punish people for doing things, and you have the option to reward people for doing things. Unfortunately, a lot of people are not really receptive to being punished, for bad play. So it's usually better to reward good play. Is usually the thing you got to do there. Hey man, hey Sir Gellington, how's it going? Hey, howdy, hey. How is it hanging? Ah. Oh, goodness gracious sakes alive. Okay, just looking at a few things here and there and everywhere. Okay. We are at the end of the tomb, last level before the... Ooh, good stuff. Oh, man, I love me some Tomb of Annihilation, let me tell you. I love me some good old Tomb. Like I said, I said this earlier in the stream, but I'm going to have some... I'm going to potentially be having some new videos coming out about Tomb of Annihilation, and I'm really looking forward to it. Tomb of Annihilation is just my favoriteest 5e adventure module of the lineup because it does what I want out of a 250-page adventure module. My group went from me DMing TOA to us playing Curse Strahd, me playing a character. How do you go from a lush, vibrant jungle to a depressing environment? How do you have fun in Barovia? Well, obviously my first response is to not have fun. That's the first one there. But that's obviously just a quick, easy go-to answer. Now, the real crux of this thing is having fun in Curse of Strahd. So, when you look at TOA, purely as written, TOA is it's a mishmash between this pulpy, gritty style of Conanian adventure mixed with Indiana Jones. Like, it's natively there. You've got the factions, and you've got, the area, and you've got the places, you've got the things. it's set up well to that it can facilitate a fun yet also scary time. Curse of Strahd natively doesn't have that. Curse of Strahd natively is all about a depressing environment. Curse of Strahd is natively about a just terrible mess where, you basically have your choices between what's worse and what's even worser. You've got a environment that just sucks and you can't improve anybody's lives and everything is miserable. And unfortunately, that theme of being in a depressing, terrible state of affairs, that drags on for a lot of people. And I can promise you there's a lot of people who have ran Curse of Strahd close to as written, and eventually the group burns out because they get tired of having to deal with depression and, dreariness and despair all the time. So natively, you're not supposed to have fun in Curse of Strahd, but there is simple ways to add fun in Curse of Strahd, right? There is ways you can add sunshine and rainbows to the game. There is ways you can have the environment not be so dreary. Like, you can have the times where the villain slips on the banana peel. You can have the times where, the monster that comes out of the darkness is actually just, someone playing a prank on the party. You can have those moments. But natively doesn't have any. So that just comes down to the DM, does the DM want to run it raw? Or do they want to spice things up? Because you can do it either way for sure. They come up with a lot of creative ideas to bring on a long rest. How would you handle a long rest? So without going into any spoilers of names and words and whatnot, I am here to tell you, Sir Gellington, I don't allow long rest in the grand finale of Tomb of Annihilation. It's as simple as that. I simply don't allow it. Either magic simply blocks you from doing it. Every time you take a long rest, something attacks you. Number of factors of X, Y, and Z, but you're not allowed to do it. Just simple as that. But in regards of how would I handle it in your specific situation, you can simply have it where they get a long rest and you decide to beef up the end engagement, or you decide to not give them the full benefits of a long rest. Simple as that. That's the neat part. You don't. You should try and expand on some of the locations that got glossed over in Annihilation. I definitely was thinking about that. Like, there are some areas in Tomb of Annihilation where it's kind of dead map area. There's not really too much going on. So I was definitely thinking of adding some more. For sure. Hey man, hey Clay. I've been using your Frostmaiden guide constantly to help me prep for my game, so well put together and expansive for the entire module. It's great work. Thank you, Clay. That's why I do it. That is why I do it. There is these big old honking, 200 to 300 page modules, and not everybody has the time to sit there and read and analyze and review and do homework. Sometimes people just want to plop on a 30-minute video on the side and do some prep on the side as well. That is why I do my guide module series. So thank you. I'm DMing Curse of Strahd right now, and I kind of want heavy on the horror and stuff early on, but now they're level 6, I'm starting to kind of have their heroic actions bring about consequences that give hope. Yeah, that's a great way to go about it is, every action should have a reaction, and the players should see something going on, and they shouldn't have to think about why that happened, right? They shouldn't have to be like, oh, why is this happening? If they see something going on, then immediately they should be able to draw up the pieces and go, oh, you know what? Because we did that thing, this is going on now. Oh, this monster is now on the loose because we dealt with that guy. This town is uglier because we did that. Ooh, you know. Sorry for name dropping. No problem. I just don't. I don't. You know, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. Is all. It's kind of funny. So, something to note about me versus every other D&D YouTuber is most D&D YouTubers don't cover a bunch of the 5e modules. And there's a reason for that. It's because they don't get as many views, right? And the reason why my videos don't get as many views as, let's say, if I were to do top 10 Herpy Derpy Diddly Dees, or if I did, you know, player class, you know, guides on the best multi-class warlock to pump out this much damage. The reason why my channel doesn't get that many views is because when I make a module guide series, it is very unlikely that you're going to watch the next one, right? Like, if you watch my Curse of Strahd guide series, it's not very likely that you watched Rime of the Frostmaiden. If you watched, you know, Candlekeep Mysteries, it's not very likely that you watched Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Because, one, most people take a long time to DM. Two, you know, most people are maybe switch on and off between being a DM and whatnot. And three, it's because you may not even plan on running any of the other adventure modules, right? And so it really creates a bad feedback loop for my channel because YouTube likes it when your subscribers and viewers continue watching your videos. But if I make Curse of Strahd guides and then I move on to, you know, whatever the next one was after that Waterdeep Dragon Heist, all of a sudden, a bunch of the people that are watching the Curse of Strahd guide now no longer watch the Waterdeep series, and YouTube basically sees that as, oh, hey, your viewers are no longer viewing you. That means you are doing something wrong, and we're not going to promote you as much. So, it's really unfortunate that YouTube kind of punishes making variety. Even though, like, it doesn't feel like making 5e module guides is it doesn't feel like variety because I'm just making analogous 5e module guides. But because the adventure guides or adventure modules are so vastly different, and because people aren't going to be constantly running them, it unfortunately is incredibly diverse. Like, you know, it sucks. It really does. Love this shirt, by the way, man. Looking good this evening. Thank you. I really dig this shirt too. Got a cute little D&D dragons on it. I'm DMing Rime of the Frostmaiden right, and the horror themes have been really fun for my party. I like playing up the human sacrifices and Yeti brutality. Ooh, yeah, creepy stuff. However, I'm sort of worried about Chapter 4 bumming my players out too much. That can be a huge problem. That can be a huge problem for sure. You know, once again, when you go to watch a horror movie to go get freaked out or feel depressed or scared or whatever, you only have to deal with that movie for 1 to 2 hours. But when you are playing a game of horror and darkness and despair, and you show up for anywhere between 2 to 4 hours, and you do that for months at a time, it starts to wear and tear. Like, not everyone is going to be down for darkness, death, and despair all the time. Not everybody. Not everyone's signing up for the depression train. Some people are okay with it, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are not up for that. What would you rate third after Curse of Strahd over TOA? We did Phandelver as well. So overall, for my 5e module guide, or 5e module adventure tier list, I made a video on this a while ago, but I have Tomb of Annihilation as first, I have Curse of Strahd as second, and I would easily have Wild Beyond the Witchlight at third. Wild Beyond the Witchlight is one of my most favorite of the 5e lineup, but it doesn't exactly do what... I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. 5e is trying to present a certain story, And Wild Beyond the Witchlight excels with that. It works with the game mechanics. But at the same time, there's a bunch of game mechanics it doesn't work with as well. And ultimately, I think it's my favorite story-wise. Because, let's face it, TOA story-wise is next to non-existent. The story in TOA is whatever the players make it to be. But the story-wise, absolutely, my favorite would be Wild Beyond the Witchlight, so I'd put that at third, for sure. But we are all grateful for your hard work, man. Thank you. You're doing the Lord's work, no fun. Thank you, thank you. Indeed, thanks for everything you do, my sir. No problem, no problem. What's my favorite TOA NPC? Who is my favorite TOA NPC? That's a tough one. There's some really good ones in there. Man, I genuinely, I don't know if I could decide. There's some really solid ones. What I will say is, So once again, without going into any spoilers, of course, I think maybe my most favorite TOA NPC would be Selita. And once again, I'm not going to go into any spoilers or anything, but I think it'd have to be Selita. I've had a lot of fun with her. Yeah, so going back to the whole YouTube hates me thing, looking at all my other YouTuber contemporaries, the ones that are doing the same things over and over, like the ones that are making the top 10 herpy derpy diddly dees, and the ones that are making the best class combo, best feature grab or best derpy character builds. And then other people do lore, and other people do, what else is there? I guess, what's actually been cropping up recently is, what's been creeping up a lot too is there's a bunch of YouTubers that have been doing, you're DMing wrong, here's 5 ways to improve your DMing. I see that coming up a bunch. I've been seeing a bunch of videos like that. I've been seeing a bunch of videos here's the real way to prep. Here's the, basically starting off with the connotation of you're doing it wrong, I'm going to tell you how to do it right. That's been coming up a lot recently too. And so me and some of the other D&D YouTubers are discussing that and how negative it is. And ultimately, the number one way to be successful on YouTube in D&D is comedy. Because if you look at the people like me that get chump change, numbers or views and whatnot, we cover lore, we cover builds, we cover guides, we cover whatever. But then you compare it to the people that are making skits. Man, people that make good skits, they're getting hundreds of thousands to millions of views on each one of their videos. That is the way to go. Why discuss D&D when you can just make fun of, dumb player tropes and dumb DM tropes and dumb game mechanics, That's the real way to go, is to make funny skits, because comedy is the key, it seems. I love guides that drink too much. Was a lot of fun. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And also, very recently, YouTube has been absolutely hounding us in our DMs. YouTube straight up is emailing us and making it appear on our creator dashboards. They are basically just they're basically pointing their proverbial guns at us and saying, "Hey, make shorts, make YouTube shorts, make YouTube shorts," because YouTube wants to compete with TikTok. YouTube is trying their utmost best to basically usurp TikTok and basically make the platform all about shorts. Now, all of YouTube isn't going to be shorts, mind you, but what I suspect is going to happen is, much like how there is a YouTube Kids and like a YouTube Gaming, I think there's going to be a YouTube Shorts, where instead of downloading TikTok, what they want to do is they want to have people just be on the YouTube Shorts thing, and they can just scroll and watch funny videos for 30 seconds, then move on to the next video. Which I did I put out some shorts here and there, and I had mild success. I had some views here and there, and some duds here and there. It is what it is. Oh, goodness gracious. Insane way you can do 12 damage with a greatsword in D&D. 5 ways you can do max damage. Number 3 will surprise you. You won't believe this cleric subclass build. It's the worst part about just any sort of meta is immediately everyone hops on that thing and just it becomes so saturated, right? It's so annoying that all the thumbnails for all the videos are the same. They're all they're all the stupid, constipated face with the white outline and explosions and a big red arrow and, some vague 2 or 3 words. And, it becomes so samey, and it becomes very, inauthentic in a way whenever I see so many people doing the same thing. And what sucks is it obviously works. They wouldn't be doing it if it didn't work, right? It's just unfortunate. How do you best involve character backstory or group backstory in a pre-established campaign? Okay, this is an important one because obviously 5e adventure modules don't have, not all of them have, PCs in mind, right? Or not in PC backgrounds in mind. Some of them do. In fact, actually, Tomb of Annihilation does. Tomb of Annihilation actually has a little section where it says, oh, hey, if you have this background, this is how you loop them into the adventure. But not all the adventure modules have that, right? So there are several ways to go about approaching this, Devin. One of which is you loop them into the beginning. You loop them into the quest hook right from the get-go. If it's a group of, 4 strangers that get together, they're all getting together because of their backstories. Their backstories are what's causing them to be here. Oh, yeah, the thief got in trouble with the law, and now they're being forced to be going on this quest. Oh, hey, the noble knight is told that they will get, an estate if they go on this quest. Oh, hey, et cetera, et cetera. So you could do the first step of looping them into the beginning of the quest. The second way to go about that is to peter it out over time. Instead of everyone having all of their shared stakes right from the get-go, instead, you look at individual quest hooks for the campaign and loop them through there. So, for example, being player 1, the fighter. Okay, the fighter is going to have the backstory looped in to, chapter 1, near the end of chapter 1 here, at this thing. Then the wizard, oh, hey, I'm going to loop them into something that's going to happen in chapter 3. Oh, and hey, the ranger, I'm going to loop them into something that's happening at chapter 4. So you can go about individually seeding them throughout the adventure, and the reason that the party's all helping each other out is because they're helping each other out, you know. And then the third way you could go about seeding character backstory and group backstory together is just don't. Something very important is to consider is you don't need to have a 5-page backstory to loop you into the game. You don't need to have oh, hey, my father was betrayed and it was actually my uncle and, I was injured and then I fought 3 bandits along the way and then I learned this trick from my cousin and the reason I've got this spell is because a shooting star flew over and did. You don't need that all the time, right? Sometimes it can be just simple to say, hey, let's show up, make a character that wants to adventure. You're part of this adventure, go. It could be as simple as that. So 1, loop them into the starting quest hook. 2, seed their backstory into plot elements / areas over the course of the adventure. 3, just don't bother with it. Be an adventurer that wants to adventure. Simple as that. Favorite Rime of the Frostmaiden NPC? Oh gosh. That's an interesting one. Who is Clay? Yeah, who is my most favorite Rime of the Frostmaiden NPC? Let me scratch my noggin for a second here. It might be gosh darn, that's a tough one. Because the funny thing is, in Rime of the Frostmaiden, a lot of the NPCs are just genuinely not good people, which is kind of funny. But even still, like, even if they're not genuinely good people, like, they can still be a good NPC, of course. My favorite NPC might have to be I'm like basically like mentally I'm going like from town to town and thinking of all the NPCs in each town, and then I'm like working my way out to all the dungeons and whatnot. My favorite NPC might have to be Avarice. It might have to be Avarice, and once again, without going into spoilers, might have to be Avarice. Conrad, I gotta bounce and get some dinner going. Thanks for the insights as always. No problem, no problem. Always happy to provide. Always happy. I love the Arcane Brotherhood and had my players meet Zan early on, and they met Avarice last session. I'm planning on introducing Velen soon and before starting Chapter 3 stuff. Heck yeah. Yeah, I highly recommend meeting the AB early. Once again, without going into any spoilers, of course, about who they are, but I highly recommend getting them involved early on in the campaign. What is your favorite creature type to implement against your players? I'd say humanoid. Because ultimately, monsters are monsters. And, you know, when a monster is a monster, you expect them to be a monster. But when a humanoid is like a humanoid, they can be anything, right? You know, like I expect the what do you call it thing? I expect the owlbear to try and eat you because it's an owlbear. But when the human noble, you know, is against you, then they probably don't try to eat you. Maybe they try and eat you, maybe, but maybe they also use their political influence to you know, have you scorned by the population. Maybe they hire people to, you know, beat you up. Maybe everyone, maybe they, you know, pitch you against each other. Humanoids, in my mind, provide the biggest intrigue of all monsters, because navigating how monsters work, eventually your players are going to figure out that, you know, this monster is dealt in this way. But how are humans dealt with, right? Humanoids, anyway. They're dealt with, you know, in any number of ways. Yeah, I was planning on having Avarice play a big role near the end. Super fun. Heck yeah. I highly encourage that for sure. Highly encourage that. Also, can I just say, this freaking poster is so good. Holy bejesus. Let me see if I can, like, zoom in on this thing. This poster is fantastic. Oh, I zoomed out too much. Gosh darn it. This is, once again, zoomed out too much. This Goodman Gaines poster, it's friggin', it looks so good. Thanks for answering all my questions today. I had a blast. Catch you later, NFA. Hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you, Devin. And stay tuned on my channel and on my Discord. I believe I'll be posting public games pretty soon again, because I'm going to be running a bunch of public games for people to hop into pretty soon. So check that out for sure. I'll be running some Dungeon Crawl Classics. I'll be running in the near future, I'll be running some Strahd Must Die Tonight. So basically a one-shot in Castle Ravenloft where you got to kill Strahd before you die. And I'll be running that using a whole bunch of different game systems and fun, wacky, different elements going on. So check all that out. Oh, my nose is all jacked up for some reason. Heck yeah, it'd be an honor to play under your guidance. No problem, no problem. Ugh. Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, I plan on I don't know if I'm going to be doing any live stream games anytime soon, but one of my plans was I'm going to be running games, recording them, and then I'm going to re-upload them to YouTube or upload them to YouTube. But when I do, there's going to be DM commentary. So basically, when I upload them, you'll be seeing me being like, "Okay, player, roll this check or this save," or I'll ask my player, "Yeah, player, what do you do here?" And what it'll be is there'll be DM commentary, and it'll be me writing out and saying like, "Oh yeah, I'm having them roll this because of what's about to happen," or "Oh, I'm asking them this question to get them, thinking about, what's going to happen next," or "Oh, I give them this clue. Are they going to pick up on it? Yes or no?" kind of thing. And I think that'd be really interesting to see because, whenever you're DMing, you obviously can't, do any commentary, when you're doing live stream, really, because you're too focused on the game at hand. So I think it'd be really cool to have like an insight to running games, and getting people to think about, how they go about doing certain things. Oh boy. Oh goody. So, if any of you have any comments, questions, concerns, gripes, moans, or complaints, feel free to voice them. Feel free. I'm all ears. I'm all about it. I am here for it. I am the public servant who is trying to help everybody out. Alrighty, good stuff. My green screen just doesn't want to not have fuzzies on it for some reason. I don't know why. Kind of annoying. I've always got to like straighten it out, whatever. Because those of you that don't know, I don't have a green screen like normal people have a green screen. I have a green bedsheet like thing that I hang from my ceiling and it drops down onto the floor. Because for those of you that also don't know, I don't sit on a chair or anything of that nature. I sit on the floor. So it's a pretty jank setup, but you got to make do with what you got. You know what I'm saying? You got to do what you got to do. Oh, goodness gracious. Anyone running any spooky games anytime soon? I'll be running the Strahd Data Nights, and I know for a fact those will be spooky. I'll also be running some Dungeon Crawl Classics horror adventures. Those will be fun. Plan on doing a Spooktober near the end of October here. Unfortunately, a lot of my October got eaten up by some personal projects and family stuff and whatnot, but hoping I come out the end near Halloween with a whole bunch of goodies in tow. Some things I get to show off. Do. My lights are also incredibly hot. I need to get a light that doesn't make me sweat when I'm recording, because when I record I start to sweat a lot. Have I run Descent into Avernus? I'm thinking about running that next. What? Yes. So I have ran it, and in fact, Clay, that is going to be one of my adventure module guides that I'm going to be working on. I've already made the review and overview. The next video that comes out will be ways we can improve the start of the campaign, and then from then on, I'll be going how I normally do for most of my campaigns and going chapter by chapter, and going over how it is and ways we can improve it and things of that nature. So, Descent to Avernus. That'll be a fun time. That'll be a fun time. Some good old hell action. How have you handled Chardalyn, Madness, and Rime of the Frostmaiden, or Madness in general? One of my players picked up the Cursed Object, and I've never dealt Madness before. Yeah, so I talked about this a little bit earlier, but basically, there are people at your table who may be perfectly fine with being told, hey, your character now thinks this way. Hey, your character now acts this way. And some people will roll with it. But unfortunately, there's a bunch of people who are not okay with that, right? There are people that want full autonomy of their character. So I would just straight up ask, the players and say, hey, like, if you came under some sort of debilitating effect, would you be okay with, your character changing? Without, basically just asking them, hey, like, are you okay with that? And basically you may get some people that are perfectly fine with it, and you're gonna get some people that are not fine with it. And if they're not fine with it, then instead of making it a character change, I would instead lean into a mechanical change. Instead of it being, oh hey, you now have madness, I would instead have it be, okay, you have magical madness. Maybe you have a 1 in 4 chance of, attacking your friend, or maybe you have an X% chance of dropping your weapon in combat. You have an X% chance of, X, Y, and Z. Like, there's a lot of ways you can approach that, right? But for the ones that do not want to deal with a character change, then you need to have something in there still, right? Because, like, If they can pick up any cursed object and then nothing bad happens to them, then that's kind of lame, right? That's mechanically just lame. So have mechanical inputs in there that show off their actions, and that'll inform them of their decisions. Hey, you picked up that cursed sword. Now you have a minus to hit against a certain enemy type. Hey, you picked up that crystal there. Oh, hey, now you make these types of saves with disadvantage. Something along those lines. Me personally, I'm okay with characters being changed. I'm okay with that, right? But not everybody is, and don't go against what people want or don't want, right? That is that's my go-to there. I'm running Strahd Must Die tonight for the second time. Thoughts on a session 0? Tips or ways to change from last year's? So there's a number of things at that. One session 0, it's a one shot. Or actually, it might not be a one shot depending on the way you run it, I guess. So yeah, it probably makes sense to go to the individuals and be like, hey, here is the scenario. You go here. You're doing this. Here are the themes present. Keep it short, sweet, to the point. It doesn't have to be this incredibly long, arduous session 0. It can be as simple as saying, hey, here is what you are doing. You are here to do X, Y, and Z. This is the adventure. No ifs, ands, or buts. Either show up or don't show up. It could be as simple as that, right? And then tips or ways to change from last year's. So I've also ran Strahd Must Die tonight. And one of the things I'm doing to change it over the course of the times that I'm changing it is, one, I'm using different game systems. Like, I'm not using 5e to run Strahd Must Die tonight. I'm actually going to be using Old School Essentials, which is essentially like basic D&D. So essentially what original i6 Ravenloft was ran with. I'm going to be using that. And so that's my way of changing it up. I'm going to be using different game system. But other ways you can change from ways you can do some simple changes to make the castle, come to life is you can change some traps around. You can change up the random encounters. You can change up the start location. You can, and of course, very, very importantly, is you change up the locations of the items that they need. Right, like that's a very great one. Like you do the tarot card reading for them, and then boom, they have to go to different parts of the castle. Because most times when you do Strahd Must Die tonight, they don't explore the whole castle, because if they explore the whole castle, they're going to die because they're going to get into too many encounters, right? So, just having them, go to different parts of the castle that they may not have gone to before is a great way to go. I'll actually let me I totally forgot to grab all these questions. If not character changes, add mechanical changes, and then running Strahd Must Die. Thoughts on session 0. Session 0, go for it. Easy changes include different start zones, different end zones. Great shirt, man. Thank you. I totally dig this shirt. I got this, and I got a Halloween themed D&D shirt, which is really cool. I'm sure I'll be wearing that for some something I'll record pretty soon here. Nice, thank you. I'm toying with the idea of Straw dominating in the switching places of player 2 hours if they fail a save. There you go. Easy way to go about it. Easy way to go about. It's funny because I'm going to be running i6 Ravenloft, so I'm not even running 5e. You know, Curse of Strahd, I'm going to be running i6 Ravenloft, pretty much just straight up out of the book. Except for the original i6 Ravenloft, it's actually a little bit lengthier because you start off going into the village of Barovia, and then it takes a little bit longer. But just starting off and being like, okay, you're at the castle, go. Like that's a great way to go about it. Do you have an easy rule of thumb when it comes to increasing or decreasing encounter difficulty? Recently I had an encounter I thought would be challenging that my player stomped through. Yeah, so here is the unfortunate answer to this. And the simple answer is you just make it up as you go along. Like that's the simple answer, right? Like, oh, hey, I dropped these 2 Umber hooks, and I think that these 2 Umber hooks are going to be scary for the party. But then I see they blaze through the HP. Well, then, guess what? They have more HP now. Oh, man, these Umber Hulks hit. And when they hit the fighter, okay, they do barely any damage. Okay, next time they have an ability that makes them do more damage. Like, you can do things, you can increase the numbers as you go along. Simple as that. But ultimately, what I'm here to tell you is 5e was not designed to have 1 encounter a day. The classes were not balanced for that. The game was not balanced for that. The game wasn't designed for 1 encounter a day. It just wasn't. You are supposed to get into multiple encounters in a day. And that pretty much directly goes against how most people run the game. Because most people only run a game where you get into 1 to 2 encounters in a day. So 5e is just natively imbalanced, right? And so for your example here, you ran this encounter, and the encounter apparently got stomped through. That wouldn't be an issue if they had 5 more encounters in that day. Because, yeah, that encounter was easy, but what if they get into that same encounter and now they're down resources? And then they get into another encounter and they're down more resources, and down more resources. That is the way the game is supposed to be played. Over time, these spellcasters are supposed to lose their spell slots. Over time, the people that have, features are supposed to be losing their features. That is the way the game is meant to be played. And people are just not running the game the way it was written. People are running the game where you get into 1 encounter a day, and that means you have your full retinue of resources. The wizards always have their fireball. The fighters have all of their action surges and, et cetera, right? So what you have to do is, if you run a game where it's only 1 encounter a day, you have to overtune the bejesus out of these encounters. And it just creates this weird, wonky, imbalanced game. And it sucks to, have to do that. But you have to do that if that's the way you run the game. And also, very importantly, is when you run the game where you only get to 1 encounter a day, some classes are natively going to shine more than others. The perfect example being the fighter. The fighter is a marathon man. The fighter can get into 20 encounters and still have HP because they have their second wind, which comes back on a short rest. And their action surge comes back in a short rest. They get their resources back constantly. But then you compare that to the wizard, and the wizard gets nothing back. They get a few spells back once a day, and that's it. So over the course of a marathon, the wizard is supposed to run out of spell slots. Over the course of the day, the rogue is going to run out of HP, because eventually they run out of HP. But the fighter is supposed to show off their awesome talent in being able to keep up the pace of a marathon, whereas everyone else starts to lag behind. But when you run a game where you only get into 1 encounter in a day, you don't get to play the marathon. You only play the sprint. And some people are infinitely better at the sprint than other people. The wizard gets to shoot a fireball that does 8d6 points of damage. And let's say, like in the weird circumstance here, that fireball is hitting only one person. Compare that to the fighter. The fighter, normally when they hit, they could be doing 2d6 points of damage. Meaning that if they hit twice, because let's say this is level 5, that means it takes you one turn to do 4d6 points of damage. If you hit. And then, so you're already so just right there in the one turn sprint there, we're already seeing that the wizard can already outperform that. And then, mind you, that's on the weird circumstance that the wizard's only shooting one person with a fireball. If the wizard hits 2 or 3 people, then they're not only doing 8d6 points of damage, they are in essence doing 16 d6 points of damage, or they're doing 24 d6 points of damage. The amount of time it would take for the fighter to do as much damage as the wizard shooting a fireball hitting 3 people would take all day long. So it really sucks when you sit there and come to terms with the fact that running the game a certain way makes certain classes shine better than others. When you run the sprint, the wizards and the clerics and whoever dumps all their spell slots, they just have a better time than the people that don't get to do that. It's not balanced, but the game wasn't meant to be balanced in that way. So, long rant made short. Easy rule of thumb when it comes to increasing or decreasing encounter difficulty. The first one is don't do it, because you don't need to do it if you run a whole bunch of encounters. And the second one, the easy rule of thumb is, if it's too easy, bump the HP, bump the damage. If it's too hard, lower the damage, lower the HP. Simple as that. One, add more encounters in the day. 2, bump, not nump. What the heck is a nump? Bump HP / AC / damage up or down accordingly. And so and the best part is there's great ways you can do it thematically, so it doesn't feel like you're just being the mean DM or the gracious DM, right? So the example of that you gave, that the encounter was too easy. So you do this encounter, and I mean, it obviously differs for each and every single one, but if it's they're going up against cultists, let's say. They're going against cultists, and the cultists are getting stomped. Then the few remaining cultists all of a sudden wave their hands in the air, and all of a sudden they become imbued with a demonic power or a devilish power, and you see that they become that much stronger. Boom, right there. Like you can flavor that up super thematically. It could be a fun in-game cutscene, and then boom, new abilities unlocked. The cultists hit for more damage, and they can activate new spells, and they can move things about the room. Boom, that's awesome, that's cool. Now on the flip side, LOL, they were cultists? Okay, that's perfect then. That's literally perfect then, right? Like the cultists wave their hands up in the air, and boom, the devil imbues them with power. Then the other side of that being the combat is too hard. So, the combat being too hard, they're going against something and it's got too high of an AC, or it's got too much HP, or it does too much damage. Then, what I would do is, don't give them gimmies, but make them feel like they were rewarded for their endeavors. So, they're going up against the Umber Hulk. The Umber Hulk is scary. The Umber Hulk all of a sudden slams them, and it does a bunch of damage. Okay, the wizard shoots off a fireball, and it hits the Umber Hulk. Alright, it doesn't do that much damage to the Umber Hulk, but it damages their armor, and now you have an easier time to hit them. Oh, hey, the Umber Hulk is doing too much damage. Okay, fighter, as you hit them, you cut off one of their nails, and now they're doing less damage. Like I'm going to take off their strength modifier from the damage or something like that. You could do things that make it feel like, oh, hey, player, you got to do something interactive here. You did damage to them. You tripped them up. You battered them, and now they are becoming weaker over time. Because ultimately, one of the biggest problems in 5e is it doesn't matter if you have 1,000 HP or 1 HP, you're still doing the same thing. Literally the only thing in 5e that changes over the course of a encounter as written is swarms. Because swarms, they do a certain amount of damage, and then when they get down to half HP, they do less damage. That should be the case with a lot of monsters, right? Like, if a creature has 300 HP, that is reflective of their overall status. When the creature with 300 HP goes down to 1 HP, purely as written vanilla, that thing hasn't lost any vitality at all. It hasn't lost any of its invigoration. It hasn't lost anything. So it's perfectly fine to be like, its AC drops, its HP drops, significantly. Its damage output goes down. It moves slower. It does less spells now. That one feature, that was plaguing the party, that feature turns off now. There's so many ways you can go about doing it thematically to make it feel good. So reward them, right? And then not punish them, but give them a challenge if they need the challenge. You know what I'm saying? Any things you do to increase spookiness, music, scenes, descriptions, etc. Absolutely. So Barry, what I'll say is music is always good. Good music is always good. But the real thing to spookiness is environment and capabilities. You can't make anything spooky. Like, I'm trying to think of the way to put this. So, like, zombies are spooky at level 1 when you're locked in a house and the house is surrounded by 50 zombies and they're battering down the door. Like, that's scary. But you know what's not scary? The party of 5 PCs out in the middle of the open and there's 10 zombies and the wizard's got a fireball. You're not going to be scared by, like, a little pack of zombies if the wizard's got a fireball and can shoot them easily, right? So, the scene in particular it can really set the theme, right? Just make it so that they know that, make it so that they have to work to get out of the spooky situation. Like, if getting out of a spooky situation is as simple as I close the door, then it's not really a spooky situation. You know what I'm saying? Make spooky situations hard to get out of. Do you worry about cliches in your games? I had an old NPC drop some exposition, then die last session, and one of my players rolled his eyes and called it edgy. Sometimes you need exposition, though. So, inevitably, you need to give exposition to your players. Your players need to learn information. How do they learn said information? Obviously, the trope of, oh, I'll tell you this thing, that's boring. I wouldn't call that edgy. That's boring. That's just cliche boring, right? But it comes down to how do they get that information, and usually it's a cliche if they didn't earn it, right? Like, I'm pretty sure I know exactly what you're talking about, like, without going into any spoilers over the situation here, but I'm pretty sure I know exactly the situation you're talking about. Your players didn't really earn that information. Your players literally walked into a room, and some old guy gave them the info and then died, right? Now, take that scenario of this old man's got some information, how do we give this information? It could be instead, the person has written this in a journal, and the journal is by his bedside, and he's already dead. And thus they can get the information that they need, and they don't have to deal with the old person dying right in front of their eyes thing. It could be the person, happily gives the information, and then, as they're walking around, then all of a sudden, they explode. And then then you say, hey, roll initiative. Not having the person die immediately, but the old man talks to them, and then as they're walking around, then all of a sudden he explodes 10 minutes later, right? Then it's a little bit different, right? Cliches are perfectly fine in games if your players are receptive of them and play along with them. But it sounds like you've got some players that don't appreciate cliches like that. So, whenever you see a cliche in any of these written adventure modules, just think of a simple way to not make it as a cliche. Either roll with the cliche punches or make them different or exciting. Oh me, oh my goodness gracious, what a wonderful life. Thoughts on rolling in order for ability scores for one shot? That goes back into the autonomy thing. I love rolling in order for any game that I do. For most tabletop role playing games in general, if it is even possible to roll your stats in order, I like to roll my stats in order, because instead of showing up to a game with emotional baggage, as it were, the gamer baggage, instead of making the character that is exactly tailored to my wants and needs, and then this and that, instead just rolling down the line informs me of what that character is going to be. I appreciate that a lot. However, I have DM'd for a lot of people, and I know there's a lot of people who would not like that, because that goes against their autonomy of choosing where their stats go, and it goes against their thoughts and desires of how their character should be. I actually ran a game. I ran a West Marches game where everyone rolled their stats in order, and that was actually really cool, because we got some characters that normally people wouldn't make, and that was fun. But I know there's a lot of people who wouldn't be down for that. I think it's cool. But not everyone is okay with letting go of their choice. I love rolling stats in order. Absolutely dig it. In fact, for a game that I'm doing right now, it is in 5e, it is 3d6 down the line, which, mind you, is, on average with a 3d6, you're getting, 9 to 11. So the stats are really bad. And I like that. I really like that campaign. Like that campaign's going swimmingly because all the characters suck in some way, shape, or form. And adventurers that suck in multiple ways, if they go on to do something great, it's so cool. Like whenever people go and make these, super duper power fantasy builds, I'm not impressed by them because they're doing what they're doing exactly what they were made to do, right? They're doing good because they were made to be good. But whenever I make characters or see characters that are sucky, and then they go on to do great things, like that's way awesome. That's so cool. Oh man, your character that's got a 5 constitution made it to level 5. That's freaking great. Oh hey, your fighter that's got only 12 strength and 12 dex, you're sticking around in the fight. Like that's cool. Going on that, how do you encourage bad decisions, fails to increase the drama? So, ultimately, 5e is a game that punishes you for being bad, right? Just natively it does. And I assume we're talking about 5e because 5e is the popular child in the room, right? I personally play a ton of other tabletop role-playing games, but I know that 5e is just the go-to one that we're talking about here. So 5e never rewards you for failing. It only ever punishes you for failing. It punishes you for making bad decisions. It punishes you for taking the wrong feature. It punishes you for going left when you should have gone right. It just punishes you. And as I talked about before, whenever there's you can, like, if you have the choice between punishing bad play and rewarding good play, then reward good play. Now, in this scenario, this is the fun one here. This is rewarding air quote bad play. Not bad play as in it's obtrusive to the game, but bad play as in, failing. Failing is fun. If you had to choose if you had to play in a game where it didn't matter what you did, you always succeeded. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You're always going to succeed. Like, that game's going to get real quick, right? So, how do we encourage bad decisions and fails to increase the drama? You have to reward it. You have to reward them for going left when the sign says go right. You have to reward them for, putting themselves in harm's way, right? Now, how do you go about rewarding that? I assume you're not playing a game with XP because, nobody runs 5e XP these days. So you can't use XP. All right, then what do we do then? Is there a meta currency in your game besides inspiration? Is there, a point system where they can bank their points to do something good? I made a game system a while ago called Boons and Banes system, and you could apply that here in a way. A Boons and Banes system could be as simple as if you fail at something, full knowing that you're purposely failing it to increase the drama and whatnot, then you get a free boon. And that boon can be used for something later on down the line. Like, it could be used to, make something that's not necessarily true a bit more true. It can be used to, give a bonus to a check. It can be used to do a number of things. You have to reward them in some way, shape, or form in order to get it. Because if there is no reward at all whatsoever, then it's never going to happen. Simple as that. So, reward fun/creative play. Simple as that. Rewarding them for failing forward sounds like Devil's Bargain in Blades in the Dark. I think I'm going to run 4 sessions of Blades in the Dark for the first foray into other tabletop RPGs. Thanks. Yeah, no problem. You know, looking at games such as Blades in the Dark and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on like some of the other ones in that same vein. You know, those work along the same lines of you know, failing forward is way more interesting than succeeding forward, right? Adding complications and trials and tribulations to something is a lot more entertaining than just, I do that thing and it works. Simple as that. Alrighty, gang. I've been going for 2 hours and 30 minutes, so I'm going to wrap it up in 2 minutes here. So if you have any comments, questions, concerns, gripes, moans, complaints, comments, observations, anything of the sort, feel free to get them in now. Feel free to get them in. Ever played Cyberpunk? I played Red and found it really incomplete. Had to supplement lots of rules from 2020. Made me wish I was just running that system. I have not played Cyberpunk Red. No, I've touched 2020, but not Red. I read a little bit of Red. I read a little bit of Red, but I haven't gotten it to the table. No. I know for a fact though that, like, you know, because of Cyberpunk 2077 and because of the anime that just came out, Edge Runners, there's bound to be a lot of people that would be interested in playing Cyberpunk. So that is unfortunate to hear that it feels incomplete, or it found it really. Yeah, they see that it's really incomplete. That is unfortunate. And speaking of, that Cyberpunk Edge Runners anime was hecka good. That was a good anime. Oh boy. Oh goodness gracious. Any other favorite anime? I think overall one of my more favorite animes. That's a tough one. There's some. The thing about anime is, like, you can't just be like, oh, this anime is objectively the best, because obviously there's genres in anime that you've got the actions, you got the dramas, you got the X, Y's, and Z's. But you know, one of my just go-tos, just it feels good animes is Trigun. Trigun is fantastic, and I dig the characters, I dig the world, I dig the environment, I dig it all. Trigun is just a go-to, great one for me. First time in live chat. Is this every Saturday thing? Thanks for the time. It might become an every Saturday thing. It might be. My release schedule that I'm going to be trying to work on in the future is I want to release a video on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then do something special on Saturday. And that Saturday thing might be a live stream. It might be like a separate special video on the side. I don't exactly know yet. But I'm working on making this a full-blown regular schedule for sure. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to my amazing patrons who keep the lights on around here. My patrons, giving me that And my YouTube, what do you call those things? My YouTube members keeping the lights on around here as well. If you want to support me financially, then check out my Patreon or my YouTube memberships. And also, very importantly, is if you don't want to just throw money at me for no reason, in the near future, I will be releasing forth a whole bunch of written content, such as subclasses, adventure modules, new spells, new features, new things. I'll be doing a bunch of that. I'm really looking forward to the adventures that I'm writing being published. Like, that's gonna be fantastic. So feel free to check all those out. But that's gonna do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. And thank you all for listening. Thank you to my amazing patrons. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you so very much. And I cannot wait to see you all in the next one. See ya!